Mhm. Hey, hello. My name is Meyer, and this is my final for COM361. I am presenting my campaign, Turn the Page Washington, which is targeting the declining literacy rates in Washington State. So first, I just want to go over a little bit of what this campaign is and what it's meant to do with my campaign overview. So this is our broader goal. Turn the Page Washington is a statewide literacy campaign dedicated to addressing the alarming drop in the reading proficiency among elementary students. By educating parents, teachers, and community members about the evidence-based solution that is structured literacy, this campaign aims to catalyze public action and influence policy at a state level. And just for a little bit of context, Washington's literacy rates have been declining since before COVID. COVID has been definitely something that has sped this process up and made the results worse. But there is a lot of evidence that Washington's literacy rates haven't been good for elementary school kids for a long time. And that is the fault of the curriculum. Structured literacy, which is the ultimate solution that my campaign is offering, is more explicit based than our current curriculum. It's a different way of teaching. It's evidence backed, it's science backed, and it really focuses on laying the groundwork with phonetic skills as well as decoding, and doesn't assume students are understanding like our current literacy curriculum does in Washington State that operates a lot just based on assumption that students are picking things up. Structured literacy is a lot more structured, and it really is the solution. So that is just a little bit of the background of what this campaign is ultimately aiming to do, which is implement our curriculum that uses structured literacy instead of our current traditional literacy curriculum. So we're going to go over SWOT for my organization, which is the Reading Equity Program, our theory of change, our objectives, goals, and tactics. We're going to go over a stakeholder map and an engagement plan, our earned media plan, our social media plan, an example of a press release, and our measurements of success. This is a SWOT for the Reading Equity Program. I won't focus too much time on this, but this is the nonprofit that I'm basing this campaign off of. They are the ones that brought structured literacy to my attention and who are trying to do real work right now in Washington State to get this curriculum implemented to our different schools. So some strengths for this is their strong vision and their vision to fall back on. Some weaknesses are lack of upper level support, and by this I mean upper level admin and legislators, and a lack of funding. And some threats are a tradition and precedent of how we teach reading and how ingrained it is right now in our current system. Um, this is our theory of change. If we mobilize communities of teachers, parents, and school administrators to recognize the importance of the issue of declining literacy rates, we can influence legislators to implement better suited literacy curriculum in order to build a better foundation for literacy in future students. This is the hallmark of our campaign. We are doing this because literacy is core to every other aspect of learning and opens a lot of doors. And if we are not setting that foundation, we are risking a lot of our students' academic futures because literacy is the key. So some objective goals and tactics. I already went over our main goal, but our key objectives are increasing our social media engagement, engaging community members in every school district across Washington State, which is a huge feat, but I believe that we can do it. Increasing our attendance at our monthly Zoom sessions, which I'll go over. And the biggest piece is inspiring 5% of our residents in each district to contact their legislators. That is the end goal of this campaign, but it wouldn't happen without grassroots mobilization. So we have a media plan and a social media plan, which I'm not going to go over now because I'm going to touch on it a lot after this section of the presentation. But community engagement is the core of our campaign. We need the grassroots mobilization of parents and different educators in order to get legislators to hear us in the first place. So some of our tactics are monthly Zoom style or town hall style Zoom sessions with Q&A, advocacy kits, and really getting in touch with local pre-established groups like the PTA and other different district groups for really looking at district-specific engagement, especially with some of these bigger districts. We'll be using video. I'll go over that a little more in our social media campaign. Internal comms are super important to be adaptable and flexible and figure out what's working. And I'm not going to go into measuring success right now because we'll get into that at the end. Is our stakeholder map just something to highlight is these groups of parents, teachers, and school superintendents. They're our core group that we need to mobilize right now to keep um, the Washington state legislators, that last box, interested and aware. Because without the like I mentioned, without that grassroots mobilization of these boxes and managed closely, we are not going to influence the Washington state legislators. How are we going to use earned media to support our campaign? We have two main branches of this, which is local and national. This is a local turn page Washington campaign. So we'll be targeting Seattle Times, Como News, and other local outlets who have already done a lot of work targeting the decline in literacy rates in Washington state. But really, they've only set up the problem. There's been no campaign or organization that's really been trying, besides the Reading Equity Project, to make long-lasting change and to target it at the root of the problem, which is the curriculum that we use to teach. So our strategy is to align our pitches with their prior coverage and present Washington or turn the page Washington as a solution to the problems that these local outlets have already set up in the past. Nationally, structured literacy is sweeping the nation. There is a lot of districts across the nation that have started to implement it and seen real success, and we want to present Washington as that next step in the national movement. So that is our national kind of pitch strategy with the New York Times, AP, Washington Post, etc. This pitch strategy will be professional, informative, compelling. We want to really emphasize both the newsworthiness of this campaign and the human impact of structured literacy because both are extremely important to us. Each pitch will include a concise overview of our campaign and the nonprofit that we come from, and really looking at a press release and different press kits because a pitch is more likely to be picked up if we offer people to interview and different press kits to make the reporters' lives easier. Some methods of communication will reach out on social media, but also follow up with individualized pitches. And then another thing to focus on is we really want to get into podcast engagement, which seems to be the way of the future for a lot of newsworthy activities. And there's a specific one called Sold the Story by Emily Hanford that has already done a lot of work with structured literacy. So getting a series implemented with her on her podcast as Washington as the next step in this national movement would be fantastic for getting the word out. It's just a great quote from Maria Graham, the founder and executive director of the Reading Equity Project. In the wake of our state's plummeting literacy rates, funding curriculum and community effort must focus on literacy as the key factor in student success. This is just the crux of our campaign. We wouldn't be doing this if not for this larger big idea. How are we going to promote our campaign on social media? We have three main boxes that we're looking at: awareness, engagement, and action. Awareness, because a lot of people aren't even aware of the declining literacy rates, what structured literacy is, but we have to go beyond that. So looking at engagement and action, which is what will make our campaign actually long-lasting, getting people to contact their legislators. Our primary audience is students or parents of elementary school kids. Secondary is teachers and educators, and associated is just any other broad community stakeholders. But we're really honing in on that primary and secondary audience with our content, with the focus of the districts, etc. We have three main content strategy areas: stories of impact. So that looks like interviews with people and parents and students who have used structured literacy to help their children, really looking at the real human individualized impact of structured literacy. Also educational explainers, really looking at what structured literacy is, how to contact your local legislators, any questions that we know people will have about our campaign, and the answers to those questions are key to getting them to act. We are going to make some kind of educational explainer. And then our call to action, which is contact your legislators, but we need to set up all these other areas of understanding first. Metrics monitoring, we're going to get into that more, but really just looking for key engagement and meaningful engagement that leads to people actually taking action rather than just interacting with our posts, but that is great too. This is an example of a press release for our campaign. We'll be sending this out to all earned media, but also packaging this information that we have here on for all of our social media and really just getting the word out, because this press release is an example of something that'll come out at the beginning of our campaign. We'll send lots out throughout, kind of updating what we're doing, the real impact of it. And yeah, but this is an example of like our launch press release that we'll send out. And then how are we going to measure success? How will we know if this campaign is successful? We're really going to be looking through focus groups and different surveys because we are looking for how people are feeling about our campaign, the public sentiment, the public awareness and understanding. We're looking at the percentage of people who can define structured literacy, who see it as a necessary reform, and how likely they are to contact their legislators. And we'll be doing these focus groups and surveys throughout the campaign to see if we're actually having an impact, because engagement on social media is fantastic, but this is a way to actually see how the public sentiment is changing. We'll be using a lot of different analytics to look at our reach and visibility and engagement. But we really, like I mentioned, want to focus on this public opinion tracking, because mobilizing people to change their minds and to fight for something and to be passionate is the core of what we're trying to do. And using those focus groups and surveys will really help us with that. It's kind of a timeline of when we'll be doing these different surveys and focus groups. And we'll also be doing a lot of internal review, because we have to make sure what we're putting our energy in is actually working. And maybe there's something that we haven't been putting that much energy in that's doing way better than something else. So it's just a lot of pivoting. We're a super flexible campaign, because that is how we're actually going to make an impact. So just to conclude, our campaign is very strong because we have a core vision and a core ideology. And our primary goal is to pass legislation, but we know that we need to mobilize large groups of parents and educators first. These legislators aren't going to care if it's not something that the people they serve actually want. So we have to focus on that first before we can even get into contacting legislators. So we are focusing on the grassroots mobilization. This is a long-term campaign. I have it mapped in this presentation only the first 6 months, but it is a long-term campaign because it is long-term change. Overhauling a curriculum is no easy feat, but I strongly believe that we can do this through education and just engaging the passion and the real fact that we are putting our students' futures at risk if we do not solve this literacy issue. And this is the real tangible way to solve it. So I believe this campaign is very strong, and I'm very proud of it. Thank you.